Well, welcome back. It's 2:02 according to my phone. So I think what we'll do is we'll slowly start making our way back in, and we'll recommence with the symposium. For those of you who may be joining us a little bit later, we had a wonderful pair of sessions first thing in the morning. We talked a little bit about the histories, both legislative and activist, that brought us to the NMAIA Act. And we talked a little bit about the nuts and bolts operations of that act within the Smithsonian and within the NMAIA itself. I hope everyone's had a wonderful lunch over at Mitsitsam or somewhere else. I know I did. Always the chili-flavored chocolate kind of thing. So this afternoon, we'll be taking up two other aspects. The first, we want to think a little bit about what's happening on the ground in tribal kinds of contexts in Native communities. And then the last session, we'll be thinking a bit more about international kinds of experiences around repatriation. So our third panel will be chaired today by Roberta Bobbie Conner, member of the Confederated Tribes of Umatilla, director of the Tamástslikt Cultural Institute since its opening in 1998. Bobbie's a former trustee of the board, former trustee of the Smithsonian Museum of the American Indian, and in fact the former chair of the board. And it's been my great pleasure to have a few years working with her. She is an amazing and thoughtful advocate, critic, intellectual around the practice of museums and museology, particularly in Native country. The conversations I've had with Bobbie over the years have been so enlightening. I've learned an incredible amount from her about how things operate on the ground in her own very fine institution, but also her kind of picture of the national scene and about the mission of museums in Indian country. So, Bobbie, it's wonderful to have you here, of course. It's always my great pleasure to see you and spend time with you, and I will turn things over to you and to your panel.
Good day. My name is Sísaawipam at home, and here most people know me by Bobbie. And before I introduce the co-panelists, I'd like to gauge the room's participation. And for those that's on the C-SPAN audience, how many of you are representing a tribe or a historic preservation office in Indian country? Could you please raise your hands? And how many of you are representing agencies or museums who do business with tribes over repatriation in particular? Wow, okay. Well, Indian country, we're used to being outnumbered, right? So if the panelists were to retitle this panel, I think it would be The Untold Stories of Repatriation, and I hope that that's where we will get to when we get to the questions as well as the presentations in this panel. But I'd like to, just for clarity's sake, to start off with my experience with the Confederated Tribes of Umatilla, which is my home tribe, to indicate that we have a division of labor in our tribe and how we handle our work. The Cultural Resource Protection Program is the Tribal Historic Preservation Office and officer in that Department of Natural Resources. And they deal with all things having to do with repatriation, not only of human remains, but associated funerary objects and all other relationships under NAGPRA, as well as the NMAIA Act. They deal with ground disturbance and monitoring. The museum, Tamástslikt Cultural Institute, has a specific job of interpretation and curation. And our tribe's elders thought it best that those who were dealing with the public on a day-to-day basis, gathering stories to be told to the public and engaging the public as a routine part of our business, should not be the people who are doing the repatriation work with human remains in particular. So our museum has been a repository in our sacred storage vault for a select number of special holdings that were temporary, and we have permanent or semi-permanent storage for some archaeological material, but we have made it a practice, because we are a public facility, to separate that in our tribe and to make the work of those dealing with the public exclusively that. So the museum deals with interpretation and curation, And the repatriation work that we have been involved in is repatriation of knowledge. And that has been through convocations and symposia and our own tribal history book, and soon to be our own tribal native place names atlas to be published. So my work with repatriation has largely been through 6 years on the Board of Trustees for the National Museum, and I want to just emphasize that for those of you who were here this morning, I think you heard a very thoughtful presentation by both those people representing the National Museum of Natural History and the National Museum of the American Indian. But I think that those of you who are working on repatriation have had very different experiences, good and bad, with both institutions. You know how it is when sort of not the rubber meets the road, but when the moccasins hit the trail, how hard it can be in practice to do this work. And you are the people who have the very difficult jobs of not only all of the logistics and the politics of handling repatriations, you also have the responsibility of taking care of your own personal, physical, spiritual, and emotional well-being while you do this work on behalf of our people in Indian country. So I want to applaud you for the work you do, and I want to say to you, these are people who know what the trail is like, and they're going to talk to you now about that experience. So I'm delighted to welcome, as the panelists for this presentation on the broader context, Native community and agency perspectives, Lee Kuanwisioma? Did I get that close? From Hopi, who has 25 years of practical experience in this field. He was actually putting his office together before the NMAIA Act or NAGPRA were enacted, and has been doing this work for 25 years, and we're optimistic possibly another 10. To his left, and I don't say that because of health reasons or anything in particular, but because it's hard work. And to his left is Don Simonis, who is representing the Bureau of Land Management and who has about 20 years of experience working in repatriation as well. And they have some very specific experiences they want to share with you today.